Hey guys, welcome back. So last time what we did is get started on our web crawler. We created this follow links function which just calls an instance of our DOM document parser class and it echoes URL. So that should work and just makes sure. So we just did that just to make sure that our class is being created properly. But now we're going to move on and do something a little bit more complicated. So this part, I'd say probably this video, the code we're writing here is the most complicated part in the whole course really. So I just want to stress again that you can ask me any questions you want and I'll be happy to help, okay? But it is also important to know that you don't really need to fully understand everything we're about to do. It's good to understand what we're doing at a basic level, but there's no need to stress yourself or spend ages going over and over it to try and understand everything we're doing in detail. And you'll see why in just a second. It's actually about 4 lines of code that we need to write, but they can be quite complicated. So we'll get started. So what we're going to do though is just create an options variable. And I'll explain what we're doing as we're going through this. So we're going to create an array. Okay, so this is an array. And the reason we need to create an options array is because we need to specify some options when we request a web page. So inside the array, we're going to put single quotes. So put your single quotes in there and then put HTTP. So we're going to specify some HTTP options. And this itself is going to be an array as well. So do another array in there, just like that. So we have an array which has a key of HTTP. Okay, and the value is another array. And if you really want, you can move this onto the line below. So we have an array which contains one item at the moment, and that item's value is another array. We could do something else. We could do another thing in there with something else, and then another one below with something else. And now this array would contain 3 items, each one with the value of an array. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to have one item in there. So HTTP, and the value is going to be an array. And inside there, we're going to do single quotes. The method is going to be, so equals, and then angle bracket to make our arrow, and the method is going to be get, but that in double quotes as well. So the method key in this array is going to point to the value get. So if we access the method part of this array, it will give us this value back, okay? And then just one more thing to do in here, and that's to specify header, just like that in single quotes, and then do your arrow, and then finally in double quotes, just do user agent. I'll explain what this is in just a sec. And I'll just put doodlebot slash 0.1, and then I'll do a new line 2, just like that. And we don't need a semicolon after this because this is inside of this array. So we do not need a semicolon after this line here, all right? Just after this one, all right? So what have we just done? Well, what we've done is we've created some options, and these options are going to be used when we want to go and request a web page, i.e. we're going to go to this URL and request the whole document. And the options we're specifying are the method we want to retrieve the website with, which is going to be get, because we want to retrieve the data. And then we have to specify a header and the user agent. So we've said in the header, so we said the header of our request, okay, user agent is going to be this. And so a user agent is how a website knows who visited the website. So usually you have the name of the product, name of the web browser or name of the application or something like that, and then the version. So we're just going to create any name you want. I've just said Doodlebot. It's a web crawler bot. So Doodle being the name of my little website. So feel free to change this Doodlebot to whatever you want, maybe the name of your website. And then you do slash the version number, which we've said is 0.1 because it's the very first version. So that's fine too. It doesn't really matter a whole lot goes in there, but just know you have to do it. If you don't specify the user agent, your requests usually won't work. So we have to do that. So this is what I'm talking about when I said, like, if you don't understand this fully, it doesn't really matter because we only need this here and then you never think about it again. So just put that in and then you never have to worry about that again. So it really doesn't matter a whole lot if you're fairly confused with that, okay? Don't spend too long worrying about that, all right? So anyway, next line down, we're going to create another variable, and it's worth noting that that was the most complicated part of this of this whole constructor section. So it gets easier from here. So we're going to say context equals, and then we're going to call a PHP function. So stream underscore context create, stream underscore context underscore create, and then pass these options in there. So we're creating a stream context, which is what we're going to use when we make the request. And then 2 more lines, we're just going to say doc for document equals new DOM document, just like that. So we're creating an instance of the DOM document class, and the DOM document class is just a built-in PHP class which allows you to perform actions on web pages on DOM documents. All right. So the very last thing to do is we'll just say doc and then arrow, and then load HTML. And HTML is all in uppercase. Okay, so we need to pass in a parameter in this, and it's going to be file underscore get content. So we're passing in a file, and the file is going to be the actual web page itself. So we're going to say URL, and then false, and then pass in the context variable. So URL coming from here, context coming from here, and then this false value is actually just whether we want to use the include path for PHP. And you don't really need to know what the include path is. It's just a configuration URL, but we don't need to do that. So just put false in there. Okay. Again, I don't really fully understand this. I just know of what it does. So just know that's okay, and then save it. And this should be enough for us to see if it's worked or not. So what we're going to do now is refresh the page and see if we get any errors. So refresh the page. And you see I'm getting all of these warnings, and that's okay. I knew that was going to happen. The reason we're getting warnings is because neither PHP 5.3 or anything up to PHP 7 support HTML5. So these are warnings. Notice how they're not errors; they're warnings to do with that. So it's just that PHP isn't ready to handle these new HTML elements. Like they haven't updated it to that yet. So that's fine. So what we're actually going to do is actually suppress these warnings with an @ sign. So just before this doc load HTML, we're going to put an @ sign. And in PHP, an @ sign just means don't show me any errors or any warnings. Okay. So now when I refresh the page, you should see nothing. There's nothing there. So we've just suppressed all of those. We said don't show me those. Now I don't like using this usually because it's always good to see errors. They're there for a reason. But this is one of the very, very small cases I can think of where you'd want to use it. Okay. You could leave them on there, it really doesn't matter, but I just wouldn't want to see it when we're going to be doing the rest of our stuff. So I know the warnings and we can ignore them. There's not really any way to fix them. So I've just said don't show me those, all right? So like I said, this is one of the only times I would ever recommend using that. I don't know of any other examples when it'd be good to do that, but this is one of those times. So just put an @ there, and it will suppress the error messages. So great. So what we're actually doing now is we're passing in a URL. We're making the request to go to that URL, and we're passing in the contents of that website into our DOM document object. And this doc variable contains our whole HTML of that website. But one last thing, we're going to create a private variable up here. So right at the top, really simple, we'll just create private doc. And what we're going to do is store this inside this variable up here. And the reason we're going to do that is because any other functions we write on this page can then go over here and then get this HTML that we're saving. If we do it here only, it means as soon as this construct is ended, this value goes away. So we want to remember this value. So all we need to do is instead of creating a doc like this, we're going to say this arrow doc like that. So we're saying, instead of just creating a doc variable, we're saying this, which refers to this instance of the class, which goes up here. So this doc points to this, all right? So we're setting that value to new document, and then we want to call the function on this arrow doc like that, okay? And that's it. So this arrow doc. So we stored the value of this inside of here so we can use it in our other functions. And that's it. Just refresh the page again and you should still see no content on the page. Just make sure there's no errors. And that's it. Now we can start actually looking at the HTML that was returned.